afternoon, gentlemen. I'm not seeing any lady that side. Good afternoon, gentlemen. You are welcome to this session on improving statistics for food security, sustainable agriculture, and rural development in Africa. My name is Ben Paul, and I'm from the African Development Bank. This is the work that the African Development Bank has been doing over the years, and we have supported a number of countries in doing this in different domains of agriculture. Today, we are here to listen to a selection of countries that have benefited from the support of the African Development Bank, and also the general perspective of the support that we are providing that will be made by our staff from the African Development Bank. So I'll quickly introduce the panel that is with me right here. On my immediate left is Titus Misomba. Titus Misomba is a professional statistician. He has worked in statistics for more than 25 years. And he has served at different levels as a statistician, as a principal statistician up to 2013, and now he's the manager of Agricultural Statistics Department at the National Bureau of Statistics in Tanzania. He has been involved in work in assignments by different international organizations, and therefore his experience is quite wide. He also coordinated the development of food balance sheets in Tanzania, and that is what he'll be presenting on this afternoon. So that is Titus Misomba. On my immediate right is Vincent Ngendakumana. Vincent Ngendakumana is a principal statistician in charge of agricultural statistics at the African Development Bank. And he has got close to 30 years experience in agricultural statistics. So he'll be giving the broader perspective on what we have done as a bank in building capacity in agricultural statistics. And on my extreme right is Jocelyn. Unfortunately, her last name is very difficult to pronounce because it has about 20 letters. You will read it on your own. Jocelyn is a statistician and an economist from Madagascar. She's currently the head of the Agricultural Statistics Service in the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock and Fisheries in Madagascar, and she has been in this position since March 2013. Previously, she was in charge of contractual studies at the Unit of Rural Development Policy within the Ministry of Agriculture from 2004. And she was also a senior principal analyst at the National Institute of Statistics much earlier. We were expecting Ibrahima Mende from Senegal, Directorate of Analysis, Forecast, and Agricultural Statistics, Senegal, but unfortunately, he could not make it. His presentation will be made by one of our colleagues, Adam, and you hear that from him accordingly. So that's the team I have today. Welcome to this session. Each presenter will have 15 minutes, and then we'll have a presentation at the end. So please scribble down your questions. So 15 minutes, and I'll be warning them. So after 15 minutes, I'll cut off the microphone. Yes, I'll cut off the microphone. Sometimes I'm very strict. So let me start with the broad perspective. I'll start with Vincent Ngendakumana to tell us the technical assistant delivery model. How did you do it as African Development Bank? Vincent.
Yeah, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's not easy in 15 minutes to talk about what the bank has been doing in supporting countries, but I will try really to be as brief as possible, and if there is a need to elaborate more on one or another aspect, please let me know during discussions. The contents for the presentation is around these points, short the introduction, and of course I will, the most important point of this is how IDB has organized its technical assistance delivery to regional member countries, what the model in place, and what yield this model has yielded in terms of result and achievements, and how are we measuring that we have achieved what we had as objective, and of course conclusion, and what next. As a brief introduction, is the objective of the bank Agricultural Statistics Program is to help its regional member countries to improve and strengthen institutional, organizational, and technical capacities for the development of the national agriculture statistical systems. And of course, based on the findings from the assessment of the status of these systems, to inform national, regional, and the global agriculture development agenda. And from there, the expected outcomes of our interventions is to ensure that each country has in place governance mechanism that ensure that things are done according to legal framework, the system is operational, and the system is productive. And another important outcome is that whatever is done within a formal strategical framework, what we call national strategy for the development for agricultural statistics, which is comprehensively integrated into the national strategy for development of statistics as a whole. And implementing the action plan of these strategies and focusing on cost-effective methods so that they are used by countries to produce better and in the right way agricultural statistics. And the end product is to ensure that countries are producing more and better agricultural statistics to inform the agriculture development agenda. Of course, it is another important outcome to have indicators that measure that we are following the path, the right direction towards improving agricultural statistics in Africa. And as an input for this program is to use cost-effective methods that are available, those which are standard, so that to ensure that whatever is done according to international standards. Briefly, the delivery model that we follow is the following. Of course, at the outset of the program, which was the implementation period, first year of the action plan for improving agriculture and rural statistics in 2011, was to undertake a quick country assessment to set a kind of baseline of the status of the development of the capacity of countries to produce agricultural statistics. And then to undertake, and that it takes quite a while, to ensure that each country has in place strategic plans for agricultural statistical development, and ensuring that the action plans of these strategies are implemented. The national staff are trained in the use of the cost-effective methods. And this use as input, the research product, the cost-effective methods, and by waiting that the action plans are established, which run between 5 and 7 years, there was a need of a quick assessment of technical assistance needs for countries that will help to come up with an immediate technical assistance program for the bank to implement, responding to really needs. The first important aspect of the model is that whatever is done within the existing governance structures, mechanism. And doing this, we need to ensure that it is established, it's operational, where the weaknesses are to support that their functioning as required. Here I'm giving an example of the case of Kenya, where you see on the bottom we have the subsectors of agriculture, which work as technical working team to ensure that each subsector is working together with others. And these technical working group are coordinated technically by the two main structures, National Bureau of Statistics and the Ministry of Agriculture. And this technical level is linked to the policy decision structures, which includes directors of different subsectors of agriculture. And this decision-making group is linked to the national statistical system as a whole through the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, which is governed by the board of directors. So in the middle, you see the big circle. It's what is called ANES. That means stands for Agriculture, Nutrition, and Environment Statistics. This was existing in Kenya. But in Kenya, what was weak, like not existing, was the bottom, the technical working groups by subsectors. That is how and when our intervention, our support came to ensure that this bottom, which is very critical, is established according to the legal statistical law, and it is linked to the decision making structure. So this was done, and on the left, that was the strategic plan for agricultural statistics that was developed by Kenya with ADB support. And the process for developing this was an opportunity to establish and to strengthen the functioning of these governance structures. And whatever is being done in terms of implementing this strategic plan is done within this. If it is an activity related to this aspect of agricultural statistics, it's done within that framework. So the comprehensive implementation is coordinated in that way and linked directly to the national strategy for the development of statistics in Kenya as a whole. And another important aspect that we ensure is that whatever is being done is demand-driven, and there is a concrete commitment from the country, and the country is in the driving seat of the system from the starting until the end, and to ensure that whatever is done is according to the actual priorities of the country. So how this was done, we requested to each country to tell us very quickly by waiting that each country establish the strategic plan to tell us what are the critical areas where they require technical assistance. This was done first in 2014, and it gave an important findings. It said that if we need very short term to have a quick impact on the development of agricultural statistics system in Africa, countries need to have these strategic plans. 27 countries, that represent 68% of countries, were in need of that. And looking in more details, this area was priority number 1 in 77%. You can see another example of cost of production where 33 of countries identified one of the priorities, and where 80% of these countries consider this as the first or second priority. So the program that we established to provide technical assistance was to respond to this. Support for strategic plans, development, establishing cost of production system, providing support on MSF, providing support in the use of CAPI, support in data reconciliation, and so on and so on. And another aspect of the delivery model was to ensure that we take into consideration country specificities. We may find that countries have a common interest in this area, but they are not at the same level. This chart is giving the example of cost of production. I gave the previous chart was showing that 33% of countries were in need of technical assistance in this area. But we found out that the system is existing in 43 countries, countries, and in the remaining countries, the system doesn't exist at all. So they're important to take that into consideration so that we want to go more in depth of that. So we had to undertake more in-depth assessment of technical assistance needs according to each theme for cost of production, master sampling frame, CAPI, food balance sheets, and so on. And this helped to establish a technical assistance delivery model for each specific area. Another point that we consider in our model is how we deliver this technical assistance. Once we have all these findings, these results, we group countries according to their needs. And we involve regional communities to come on board so that we have more synergies. And we also focus on some specific aspects of technical assistance in each country, providing what we call bilateral technical assistance to individual countries. And this is according to selected countries, which show commitment in this because they are planning or they're running a cost of production survey. So that is something that tells us that this is very urgent. In other countries is saying that it will be run in 2 years' time, so that the program, the timeline is established accordingly. And there is, of course, when we do that, to have materials to provide this one, to undertake a number of exploratory missions, to establish roadmaps, and to support the implementation of this roadmap. So we ensure that the approach is participatory enough and that the countries are actually in the driving seat of the whole process, and ensuring that there is a sharing of experience, self cooperation, best practices sharing best practices between countries. Another important aspect is to ensure that there is a communication strategy. We communicate to stakeholders whatever is being done, and the first clients are the countries themselves, which are the beneficiaries. So we have a number of ways to do this. Newsletters that are regularly published, technical reports that are published on websites, all these, the products that we are having, the strategic plans, the reports that are produced in cost-effective method areas, all these important are published. And when we take advantage of some regional fora to involve media to make really advocacy for the development of statistics. And another one is to ensure the partnership and coordination. I know that there is FAO is an important partner. We've been working in terms of sharing experts and also materials that we are using involving what we call regional economic communities and sub-regional organizations. Yeah, thank you. And also working with countries and so on. So what are the results? The results are there. You can see that according to the different areas and according to the real needs, there are a number of countries which have been covered in terms of SPAs, 24 countries, important number. Cost production, you see the number of the countries covered. And of course, we will hear more details, these selected countries will be really telling their own story, how they come up to do the work. Measuring the progress, we use the standard guidelines, which requires that we ensure that we produce these indicators, which should be comparable with other regions and continents. It requires to measure the institutional framework, the resources, the statistical method and practices used, and the availability and accessibility of statistical information, and the different elements explaining this dimension. And this is used using these guidelines. And you have the result. Africa has been actually the first region, even if there's only one, to have this system established and run every 2 years to measure the progress that we are making. And we notice that whatever investment was made, if you look to the top right of the chart, you see that it yielded 10% in terms of the increase of the capacity of countries to produce agricultural statistics. So the reports are on the website. This link is given of the African Information Highway if we wanted to have details on the level of each country. In conclusion, we can say that, yeah, the most important popular area that was required by countries is very successful. SPAs were developed and integrated into NSTS and are being implemented successfully. The governance coordination mechanism has been enhanced, and that is a continuous process. And agriculture actually in Africa is emulating, other sectors are emulating the agriculture. It's a good model that other sectors are following in terms of producing these strategic plans so that they are used as a building blocks when they are developing their national strategy for statistics as a whole. The use of cost-effective methods, here we are just giving some of the reports that you can see from the websites of the National Bureau of Statistics and as ADB, and we'll have more details. And we have also the system to measure the progress that we are making. And what next? Now we need to continue using this model, and we ran the same this year, and it gives some revelations that countries, the needs are expanding. So that we see in red, there is one area which was not popular in 2014, post-harvest losses, but which require more, very particular attention, and this should be one of our focus from now on. You can see in what I put in yellow, there are areas that we have been supporting which are no longer popular because they have been satisfied SPAs. So this has to be decelerated. In blue, there are areas which were popular, they are still popular, so that we need to stay focusing on that. So Mr. Chair and colleagues, thank you for your attention. In brief, that is what I had to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent, for that presentation. You have taken my additional 1 minute. So every 1 minute that a presenter takes is deducted from the discussion. And the more minutes you go beyond your time, the more I will not allow you to take a coffee break. So can we have the next presentation? Thank you so much, Vincent. Can we now have the next presentation? I'll ask Adam to present the paper by Mende from Senegal. And this is on capacity improvement of the national agriculture system. This is one of the things that Vincent talked about. These are one of the elements, one of the domains that we do as part of our support.
This one, let's see this one. No, this one. No, that's for him. Let's see this one. Yeah, that's it. So how to go up? Oh, okay. Okay, so this back. Okay, thank you, Chair. So, okay, I'm going to present this paper on behalf of the Director of Statistics of Senegal. Then my talk will start with the outline of the talk is as follows. Start with an introduction. Then I will briefly talk about the methodical approach, how it was used, and present the result, and then indicate how those results can be used. And in the process of compiling those indicators, what are the lessons learned, and then give some recommendation and conclude as a way forward. Okay, within the framework of the implementation of the action plan for the global strategy, for the implementation of the global strategy in Africa, the African Development Bank took some assessment in 2003, 2015, and 2017. In 2013 is to collect some baseline data for the implementation of the strategy. In 2015 is for the purpose of monitoring of the evaluation of the implementation. And in 2017 is for measuring the achievement of the implementation of the strategy. And we did this all in all African countries, including Senegal. So those assessments were based on 4 dimensions of the national agriculture statistical system. We have an institutional infrastructure, which is a prerequisite dimension. Then we have the dimension in terms of resources, in terms of input, what is needed to implement the program. Another dimension is the statistical method and practice, meaning how the implementation of the program was made, and then the availability of statistical information, which is basically the result of implementation of the program. So all those different dimensions are combined, compiled, and then from them we compute what we call agricultural statistical capacity indicators. In terms of technical assistance, the capacity building in Senegal during the global strategy, during the implementation of the Africa Action Plan, focused on the elaboration of a strategic plan for agriculture and rural statistics, the construction of a master sampling frame, the implementation of AGRIS, and then the use of CAPI solution. The implementation of AGRIS was done by FAO, while the other components were undertaken by the AFDB. So what was used to compile those agricultural statistical capacity indicators? First, we sent a questionnaire to countries, and from that questionnaire, after filling it, the country sent back the questionnaire to the African Development Bank, where we compute basic statistics in terms of those indicators, those preliminary indicators. And after doing that, we organized a regional workshop which brought together 52 African countries for reviewing and validating the basic data and the preliminary result. Then after that, from 1 year to the next, for example, from 2013 after 2015, we requested country to explain the changes of those indicators from 1 year to the other, why those indicator changes. And then also recommend to those countries to focus on improving the low score on some of those dimensions. Now, in terms of a result, those are the following results for the different dimensions. As you can see, for example, the institutional infrastructure increases from 2013 to 2017. And that increase was mainly due to the elaboration of a strategic plan for agriculture and rural statistics. Because as you can see later, each of those dimensions is composed of some elements. For example, during the process of, after the elaboration of that strategic plan, some of the elements of institutional infrastructure just increases from 0 to 100%. And also the over dimension also increases following the implementation of that strategic plan, and also following over of implementation of over project, like the rebasing of the national account, which requested the collection of more data. All those contributed to the increase of the individual component of the dimension, so that's why we have that increase. So when you look also in terms of the resources, you see that in 2015 we have a drop compared to 2013. This is mainly due because 2013 was a year of where a census was conducted, so which means more resources were allocated to agriculture, to statistics. So that's why we have that drop from 2013 to 2015. Now, the second graph indicate, the different components in terms of the different dimension, and also how those components for Senegal compare to the African average. So you see that globally, Senegal's national performance in terms of its national agricultural system is above the African average. Now, what those agricultural statistical capacity indicators were used or are being used in Senegal. So when we're elaborating the strategic plan for agriculture and rural statistics, those indicators were part of the logical framework for the monitoring the implementation of that plan. They're also can be used as a reference framework for the evaluation and monitoring the performance of any national statistical system, particularly the national agricultural system. In Senegal, those indicators are integral part of a result framework of the National Program for Agricultural Investment and Food Security and Nutrition, and also the composite indicator is used as an indicator when they conducted a biennial review to monitor the Malabo commitment. As you know, African countries committed to allocate 10% of the use to agriculture. So in Senegal, every 2 years there is a review to see how that commitment is followed. And also, since the compilation or this process is done with all African countries at the same point in time with the same variable, it can be used to compare the performance of the national agricultural system across Africa. And the last not least, those indicators can also be used as a tool for the research mobilization within the government and with other stakeholders. In fact, that's what happened in Senegal during one national workshop when they presented the result. Following those results, as you know, the National National Agricultural Office got more money to do the work to improve the ranking of Senegal. So what have you learned during that process? In terms of compiling the resources, for some of the sector like land use, land and water use, fishery and forestry, in the budget, we don't have a land budget which indicated the resources which were allocated to those subsectors, so which make it difficult to inform the resource dimension. So for future assessment, necessary arrangement will be made so that that difficulty is addressed. And also, in terms of the funding for some donors, they don't go through the consolidating investment budget, and this led to a possible underestimation of the resource dimension. The development also of that strategic plan have strengthened the collaboration among the national agricultural statistical system stakeholders and have also improved their planning and assessment of skill. But here really it's not, it's true the development of SPAR contributed, but mainly this happened because of the model, as Vincent indicated, the model we were using to elaborate that plan. As he indicated, for example, the model is, even in terms of implementation, is participatory. Those technical working group he showed on one of his slides were used here as the building block. So in terms of the assessment, in terms of defining the strategic pillars, all that were done within the working group. And it's a summary of what happened within those working group will be summed up to having the final strategic axis for the strategy, for example. So all the action was taking place within those working group. And also at the end, they have a better understanding of the current status of the national agriculture system in terms of its weaknesses and what needs to be improved. So some recommendation for Senegal is when I started my talk, I said we were organizing a regional workshop to review and validate the data. So now, in the future assessment, before undertaking before going to that regional workshop, there is a need to have a national workshop to prepare it, where data will be nationally reviewed and validated. Then the process will be institutionalized. And also, you have to have some provision in terms of resources for the running of the technical group, which is undertaking the assessment. And also, in terms of the elaboration of a national strategy for the development of statistics, we have to ensure that all those ASCII results are considered are in the development of that national strategy of development statistics, which is happening now. Now, where do we go from here? We see that from following those indicators and following the implementation of our action plan, we have some improvement, we have some achievement in terms of the improvement of the actual statistical system. So now the ADB is planning to pursue the support to Senegal to continue the implementation of the strategic plan for action on the rural statistics, but especially helping them to undertake a national census of agriculture, and also the use of a master sampling firm for any agriculture data collection, especially for the integrated surveys, and also continue the capacity building of the national agricultural statistical stakeholders. So this in brief what was the presentation of Senegal. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you also for saving the time, because you have used slightly less than the allocated time. The next presentation, and I hope you're recording questions. The next presentation is by Titus Mwisomba, the Manager, Agricultural Statistics, National Bureau of Statistics, Tanzania, will be talking to us about food balance sheets and what they are for and what they can do for us. Titus?
Thank you, Chair. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm here actually to present on behalf of Dr. Albina Chua, who is the principal author of this paper, which is talking about the impact of agriculture statistics capacity building provided by African Development Bank at national level, but the case of food balance sheet compilation in Tanzania. This is the outline, as you can see from the slide. As we all know that agriculture has got a very big role when it comes to food security, fuel, clothing, and so forth. But also agriculture has got a very big influence on poverty reduction. As a sector, agriculture has got a very good big role on transforming many of developing countries' economy, especially all countries in sub-Saharan Africa, including my country, Tanzania. But we understand that currently the demand of reliable and timely data on food and agriculture is very high at all levels. When I talk about levels, I mean that at country and international level, we all scramble for data. Let me now focus on the food balance sheet. What are the components? And actually, by the time when we were compiling the food balance sheet in Tanzania, which focused from 2014 up to 2017, we had a technical and financial support from African Development Bank. But all in all, the concept and definition were the one which copied or followed from the international perspective. Food balance sheet is defined as an aggregated and analytical data that present comprehensive picture of the pattern of the country's food situation and utilization pattern. So in this case, we are focusing on the supply and utilization side. But apart from the food balance sheet, also out of it we get what we call dietary energy supply, which measures through the number of calories per person per day. But also we can get the number of people undernourished when we go through the dietary energy supply. But also we have dietary energy requirements, which gives us the average number of calories per day required by a person to be in a good health. And this is what we are saying, that through this kind of output, Tanzania will be in a better position now to report on food security solution as one of the indicators through the SDGs commitment. So let me take this opportunity to say thank you very much for ADB for showing us the way, because now we'll be in a position to say something when it comes to reporting on SDGs. But when we talk about the robust food balance sheet system in Tanzania, we are saying that formerly we had the what we call commodity balance sheet. Now, after working through the new definition and the approach, we have come with a new balance sheet. Why do we call commodity balance sheet? Because the former balance sheet, it focused on the crops, specific crops only. And some of the areas were left aside, like fisheries sector, subsector, and livestock. So, but with this new food balance sheet, of course, we have managed now to take on board the leftovers. Of course, what I want to declare that the objective of setting up the food balance sheet system in Tanzania now has been achieved, because we have the food balance sheet report and it has been disseminated on the website. What and how was it done in order to come up with the food balance sheet? Of course, we started with the roadmap, and this can be one of the lessons to be learned by other countries as well. And also we had a timetable, a very specific timetable was put in place. But also during the supply and use accounts, basic data and auxiliary information were available were validated during the workshop, in the sense that we had colleagues from different angles. Apart from those people from National Bureau of Statistics, we also had people from Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Livestock and Fisheries, Ministry of Industry and Trades. Why Industry and Trade? There is a section which is dealing with the food prices within the Ministry of Trade. So we managed to incorporate, to bring on board different actors from every corner of the country, so that make sure that these people, they come and contribute on the source of data. Of course, under this one roof, we are saying that compilation and the validation of related indicators took place. Of course, finally, we managed to have our dissemination workshop, whereby the high official from the Ministry of Agriculture did the work, did the official dissemination, and currently the report is on the website. So the means used to achieve the objective, I can say different data sources were used, but also major food compilation of major commodities took place, but also commitment from the government of Tanzania. But also there's what I have already mentioned, the technical and the financial support from African Development Bank was timely available, and this made us to move forward easily. Of course, we have to agree on the required food balance sheet method, which means the use of new balance sheet compilation guidelines whereby the leftovers were now taken on board, in the sense that all of us, the stakeholders from different sectors, we had to agree on the way forward. But also we used the compilation tool, whereby customization of the cases of Tanzania was developed. But also tool had features for imputation and missing data. You know that even if you have a data set, there are some gaps and missing. So we had to do some sort of computation. But also we had to review and update the sewer basic data and input the missing data. So this is how we compiled the tool. But it was not the easy work, because sometimes we have to discuss, to agree, and sometimes we have to agree to disagree. So this is how we went around. What is the major findings which you can get from the food balance sheet? Of course, you can get the calorific supply. That is the daily supply at calories per person in Tanzania, range from like the figure shows, 2289 kilocalories in 2015, but also 2259 in 2017. But the average contribution of vegetable contribution to the total dietary energy supply is 92.6% for the period for the reference period. And when I'm talking about the reference period, is 2014 up to 2017. So this is what I can say on the caloric supply, but also we have supply of protein, as you can see from the figures, that the blue one is the total protein for the year 2014 up to 2017. So you find that there is no big difference between the total protein in the respective years. But I can say that out of it, protein from the vegetable was mostly reading. So we say that protein mainly comes from the from the vegetable. But when it comes to animal and the protein from animal is the second, but also fish and the seafood contributes a little bit. When it comes to fat, of course, we are seeing that vegetable also is reading, because fats from vegetable is really significant compared to that from animal and seafood. But also, let us see from the food balance sheet, we are seeing that we have the self-sufficient ratio for major staple food in Tanzania for specific years, as you can see, from 2014 up to 2017. But we are seeing that cereals is really leading, but also the ratio is mostly above 100%. And what does it mean? It means that when it comes to these kind of major staple foods, Tanzania is a little bit okay, and when it comes to cereals and other products, it's more okay, because the percentage is 146. Let us look at the import dependent ratio. You find that for those years we have palm and we have wheat and so forth. So palm oil has got a little bit higher for all years, but when it comes to infant food, it's a little bit lower. And of course, from the analytical point of view, someone who can talk about that. What is the impact? The impact is that so far, out of what we have produced, government and other stakeholders, after disseminating, have started to use the report for different uses. But also we are saying that experience on data quality control was shared among members. As you can know that other members from different institutions, we were under one roof, and we were sharing the methodology and the way how to get to go through. But also now the cooperation between the government of Tanzania and private sector has been enhanced on the data quality. Of course, during the dissemination, of course, we managed to bring in the private sector who who supported in one way or another. So the interest is increasing, and they are ready now to be part and parcel of the data production in our country. What are the lessons learned? It is important to have the comprehensive and realistic budget to be funded jointly by the government, private sector, and the development partners in order to move forward. But also participatory approach, bringing on board all the actors, it's very, very important. But since the data are coming from different sources, then compilation and validation process is important for data quality before coming up with the final food balance sheet. But also auxiliary information while compiling is recommended to be taken on board. But also you have to check the quality of it, not the matter of just taking it on board. Let me conclude by saying that for timely production of food balance sheet, the need for roadmap cannot be left behind, but also comprehensive timetable should be in place before moving forward, because if you don't have that, you cannot be led by in one way or another. But also I'm saying that prior identification of resources is also important, that where we can get finance, where we can get human resource and so forth. But last but not least, I'm saying that commitment and political will of the government is crucial for sustainability of the food balance sheet. So with that, I'm saying thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bisomba, for that elaborate, presentation about the Tanzanian case of the food balance sheets. This is information which is quite useful, and we are trying to expand to have as many countries. Vincent showed you that we've done it in 6 countries. We are expanding. We want to do it in as many countries as possible. So thank you so much, and thank you also for keeping time. I would like now to call upon Jocelyn Solo something to present. And Jocelyn will be presenting on the support we have provided in measurement of statistical capacity at the national level, the case of Madagascar. That is part of capacity building.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to all of you. My topic is about the impact of AFTB, agricultural statistic capacity building, at national level. The case of agricultural cost of production statistics in Madagascar. I will talk about the context, the processes of implementation, the institutional frame and capacity building, the methodology, the simulation tool and the calculation of indicator of agricultural cost of production, and finally the impact and way forward. This slide is just to show you where is Madagascar. For who don't know, it is in the Indian Ocean near the African continent. About the context is characterized by the preponderance of the agricultural sector in the national economy, about 29% of GDP. So there is a need of comprehensive, reliable and timely agricultural statistics for good governance. But for Madagascar, the capacity to produce agricultural statistics is very low. The last agricultural census was held in 2004-2005, and there is a absence of annual agricultural surveys since 2006, so that from 2009, the production estimate is done through the crop and food security assessment and monitoring survey in collaboration with the FAO. As shown by the slide, the ASCII composite indicator, agricultural statistic capacity indicator, which is developed by the AFTB. For Madagascar, these indicators don't exceed the level of 40% between 2013 and 2017. So very low indicator. Regarding the agricultural cost of production statistics, these are current agricultural statistics like production, crop yields, and prices. These statistics allows farmers to better understand how to manage the farm activities, for example, the choice of technical itinerary. For decision makers, the statistics of cost of production allows them to know the process of price formation as well as the economic and financial situation of farmers, their income and profitability of farms, and develop better policies and or strategies. The agricultural cost of production survey integrated with the 2 agricultural census in Madagascar. For the first agricultural census in 1985, 1 product was concerned, the rest, but for the second and last agricultural census, 5 crops were concerned: rice, maize, cassava, coffee, and vanilla. So how was the process of implementation? The Malagasy government requested at the African Development Bank for technical assistance, and the bank responded positively. So an exploratory mission was held in March 2018 in Antananarivo, and a roadmap was developed and validated. So based on the roadmap, the technical assistance was implemented. What are the main activities about this roadmap? Firstly, regarding the institutional frame, by setting up the thematic technical working group on agricultural cost of production. So the mission of the thematic group are to take charge of all the technical activities planned with the support of consultants. And the second mission is to validate technically the related intermediate products. The members of the thematic group are the representative of entities involved in agricultural cost of production, like the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock, the Rural Development Action Plan, the National Institute of Statistics, the Ministry of Haliotics, Resources and Fisheries, and the Ministry of Environment, Ecology and Forests. So the second activity about the roadmap was the organization of national training workshop on agricultural cost of production in September 2018 in Antananarivo, with covering the main thematics of agricultural cost of production and bringing together the members of the technical group and other stakeholders. The third activity is about the development of the methodology. So, to sustain the production of agricultural cost of production statistics, it is necessary to integrate the agricultural cost of production survey into the current agricultural statistics survey, and to use a simulation tool that I will explain in the next slide. About the sampling, the sampling is based on the data from the agricultural component of a general census of population and housing. The statistical units is at 3 levels, farm level, plot and crop levels. For the data collection, the technical group recommended 3 passages after the soil preparation period, after the maintenance of the parcel, and the third period is during the harvest period with the CAPI approach. And for the periodicity of survey for a given product, so each 5 years. Regarding the indicators of agricultural cost of production, There is a standardization of units to allow comparison and relevant analysis. The calculation of allocation K for common costs and take into consideration the various dimensions of agricultural cost of production, like the monetary costs, that is the costs paid in terms of, really paid in terms of money by the farmers, and the non-monetary costs, that is the non-paid costs provided by the farmers themselves, and the economic cost. The economic cost is the monetary and the non-monetary costs together. So about the agricultural cost production simulation tool, the objective is to simulate or project agricultural cost production indicators according to chosen parameters. So for the moment, the main source of data is the data about the last agricultural census in 2004-2005 with the related survey about the agricultural cost of production. The basic features of the tool is in Excel and open source. Regarding the process, so first of all, loading the individual and complementary data. Next, the preparation of data, like the creation of unique identification of the statistical units, the distribution of common costs by allocation case, and finally, the calculation of the agricultural cost of production indicators by activity or by product or by geographic subdivision. Some main result of the calculation of agricultural cost of production based on the data of the last census. So the economic cost per hectare represents for us 68% of the total value of the production. But in general, the production of these crops, the 5 crops, rice, cassava, maize, coffee, and vanilla, gives benefits to farmers. In terms of cost allocation, the large majority of costs are non-monetary. The monetary cost does not exceed 15% of the economic cost. To conclude my intervention, the technical assistance provided by the AFDB helped implement an institutional framework for agricultural cost of production, strengthen the capacity of agricultural statistics technicians, develop the methodology to sustain the system, create a tool for simulating agricultural cost of production and to value existing data from the last agricultural census, and to calculate the agricultural cost production indicators of the 5 crops. In terms of perspective, the country is preparing the next agricultural census with modular approach. So the agricultural cost of production survey is programming, is among the thematic surveys for this next agricultural census, but financing needs to capitalize on achievements and sustain the system of agricultural cost of production statistics. So, my intervention is finished. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jocelyn. You have also kept time. I've got very, very disciplined presenters. They all kept time. Can we give them an applause, please? Now we have about 25 minutes of discussion. That's good enough. So I would like to request you to please raise your question, and if possible, mention whom you want whom you want to answer your question. If it is Vicent or Jocelyn or Titus, so that it is easy to distribute the responses. Can I open the floor? Do we have a microphone anywhere? All right, we have a microphone. I know most people don't like being the first people to ask, so whoever picks the microphone will be the second. So you are the second. That's the second speaker.
Sorry, the second?
You are the second speaker.
No, not the first to ask.
No, because people don't like being the first.
Okay, thank you so much. And the three presenters, I've got, I think 3 questions, simple questions, one for each presenter. First, let me start with Vincent on the model that I used to provide technical support to African countries. Of course, it seems to have done quite a very good job, but I need to understand if ADB has got any plans to make some follow-ups to the technical support which have been provided to the countries, because you have talked about providing technical assistance on the development of spas, but sometimes you can provide this support to the country, have a very good document, but when it comes to the implementation, it becomes a challenge. So very good plans, document that may be sitting in the shelves, but nothing being done to the document. So I just want to find out if AFDB, the Flag Bank, has got any plans to make an assessment on what the countries are doing in terms of implementing the SPAs, so that if there are any challenges, maybe you can also assist them. The second question goes to the second presenter, the Titus. This has got to the FBS. It's a very good presentation. My country is also looking for technical support on the same. We are planning to migrate from the old new balance sheet to an improved one. But we had an assessment just a few months ago. One of the challenges that we noted was lack of data for the new full bank, because it's demanding quite a lot of data, which is not being generated by the countries. So I just want to understand from you, what approach did you take to address the data which is not being generated by the countries, but is needed in the full budget? Again, on the same data issue, how did you handle issue of informal cross-border trade? I understand that there is too much informal cross-border trade, whose data is very difficult to capture. To Madagascar, I've got one or not 2 questions on, you said that you conducted the cost of production survey in 1985 and 2005 as one of the modules for the agriculture census. I just want to understand from you, how do you manage, what kind of data, or what did you do in the years when you're not conducting the agriculture census? Do you use a model or maybe the other approach? Because I understand the cost of production data is needed on an annual basis for countries to determine or to recommend the minimum prices farmers can sell or their commodities. So in the years when you're not doing the cost of production, why do you use a model to come up with an estimate on the cost of production, or the other means of getting these indicators? I think that is all, Chair. Madagascar. From Malawi. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. That's a question from Malawi. Now the first question. We have finished with the second question. Now the first question.
Thank you, Chair, for giving me the first question. My name is Godfrey Saga. I work for Eastern Africa Statistical Training Center, Dar es Salaam, Tanzania. My question goes to Vincent. As I was following Titus' presentation, I see there is a problem with the curriculum development, especially on this area of agriculture statistics, especially this food balance sheet, some of the issues that Peter Titus has addressed in our curriculum, they are not there. I also looked to other institutions in Africa, especially for English-speaking countries. Some of the components, they are not there. Now, do you have any effort to harmonize the curricula so that we all focus in monitoring SDG, especially the SDG 2? Thank you.
Right. Of course, what I gather from this question is that, you know, as African Development Bank, do you have interest in reaching out to the training institutions to, as much as possible, contribute to the curriculum development? You know, that has been a missing link, both for regional institutions, but also for national statistical offices. That you have a national statistics office, they generate quarterly national accounts, and when you go to the training institutions around, there's nowhere where they talk about them. So the question is, can we integrate the practice and the academia? A very interesting question. I particularly have interest in this because I started in the academia and I went into practice. So I know what this one means. Right. Can I get another question? As people are thinking, possibly we can get responses from Vincent. I'll start with Vincent. Then after that, I'll go to Titus and Jocelyn. Vincent.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the questions, which are really very relevant. The first one from Malawi, I think that he raised a very important question, if there is really any follow-up to the technical assistance already provided to countries, and he made a reference to strategic plans, SPANs, which has been was one of the popular area requested by countries, and the ADB focused on that and delivered for 24 countries. And the question is asking if there is any follow-up in terms of ensuring that the SPAs, the implementation of the action plans are really successful. Yeah, I can say yes, but I can also highlight that the implementation, again, is in the hands of the countries to do that. So when developing these SPAs, there is one aspect which is very important, the advocacy. That has to start from the outset of the design process itself, ensuring that from the top level you have a good champion, and the purpose of that one is to ensure that whatever is being done has a blessing of the authority, and whatever will be done in the implementation is also supported by that. And this advocacy and communication strategy is a part of the strategic plan itself. So, and that is really really a critical area where really this is really made clear in the document itself. And there's a chapter dedicated to the communication and advocacy strategy in the document. Again, it's the country really to ensure that this is also implemented as many other aspects of the strategic M&E and so on and so on. But coming to ADB, yes, of course, that there have been important initiatives in terms of really providing really support to countries so that we ensure that they are implemented. If not, this will be a big loss, not only for countries, but also from development partners, including ADB, with all the money invested into that. And the first important action that was taken was a conference that were organized in 2016, January, in Dakar. That was an important conference that was organized, including decision makers, planners, finance, and Minister of Agriculture, made together for those countries so that they understand that they have really the responsibility to ensure that this is implemented. And we noticed that that has been very helpful in some countries, really to be more, more conscious to support the implementation on that. And there is another also important point to say, providing technical assistance in orders, we ensure that this is within the priorities of the countries, not only in terms of the priorities that countries are reporting on, but to ensure that they are reporting what is already in this important strategic document. So this is another. So we ensure that if we are providing technical assistance in food balance sheet, that was part of the strategic plan. If it's about MSF for Kenya, food balance sheet, CAPI, and so on, they are in that, so that we are supporting in one way or another the implementation on that. And another main sources to ensure that the sustainability of the successfulness of implementation of that is to ensure that the investment plan, national investment plan for agriculture are really considering the strategic plan. So they should be aligned into that to ensure that there is resources that are really provided within the existing investment framework in the country, the sector. So we are supporting in many ways to ensure that these SPAs they are implemented. There's very good cases that we noticed that so far we noticed some countries have already managed to implement more than 50% of activities. And one of a really big activity taking money is when they include agricultural census. If they include that one, it's more than 50%. So we see that some countries, like Cape Verde is one where I think the second country to develop the SPAs, and the census was among them, and the agricultural census implementation was supported and funded by ADB for 30% of that, and now the census has been completed. There was another complementary module, so the cost of production, ADBs are supporting the same, the use of CAPI. So I see that they're one of the good examples by the end of the implementation period to see the country having implemented more than 80% of what is in. Then other good cases, but also there are some not good cases that really require really more attention. But again, the first responsibility is for the country. Yeah. Concerning also the critical question raised by a colleague from the Regional Training Center of Dar es Salaam, I think that my boss has already responded. That is very critical, it's very important. That was the component of the training component of the action plan that was really managed by the UNECA, and we've been working together in terms of that, and harmonizing the curricula was one of the aspect, but of course there are many areas. You are now raising the case of food balance sheet. I think that is something that we can contribute to. We can contribute to because this is very important to ensure that our young sisters and brothers are well trained and the curricula update. And what good also you have the National Bureau of Statistics around the school. I think that one is the theory and another that is the practice. I think that putting the hands in the bread, so that would be very, very good. So I think that my boss can really say more about it, but it is a very important point to consider that really that the training centers are supported because this is one of the best way to ensure the sustainability of our programs to support the countries producing better and more agricultural statistics.
Thank you, Vincent. Just a simple, a quick supplement. One on the SPAs, on the strategic plan for agriculture and rural statistics. When you develop a SPAs, you are actually developing an advocacy tool. It's a tool that you can use for bargaining. And I would like to use the example of Uganda that developed SPAs, actually even before the global strategy started. Uganda developed its SPA. is SPAS. And it was developed during the time when I was a DG, actually, of statistics in Uganda. And when we developed the SPAS for agriculture, it had two impacts. One, they used the document to bargain for more staff, more statisticians. And they got additional 10 statisticians, which is very unusual, very unusual. That was one. Two, they only had a section of statistics with like 1 or 2 people. It was upgraded to a department headed by an assistant commissioner. And this made impact. Now, what the point which Vincent raised is very critical, that sometimes there are people who come with support to the Ministry of Agriculture. And you want to structure that support. You know, sometimes you don't have to accept any support that comes. But when support comes, you say, wow, we have our lines of investment. That's the agriculture investment plan. We have our lines of investment. We can invest in this and in that and in that. So it can actually be used as a very good bargaining document that we should not overlook. And in fact, while we did that for agriculture in Uganda, we also did it for other sectors. We did for the police. For the police and the revenue services, there what they did, the people in the statistics section, they used it to bargain with management to increase their budget, the budget of statistics within the institution. So you can, it's a matter of being proactive using that document. The issue of curriculum development is something that we may have to look at in our, in the next statistical capacity building program going forward. It's something that we are thinking about. We can actually contribute to in the future. Titus?
Thank you, Chair, for this opportunity. I understand that my colleague from Malawi, we are bordering. So I think on the way of moving forward, instead of start thinking about going to regional blocks, start thinking about what is available within the neighboring countries. So for us in Tanzania, we have already managed to produce the food balance sheet. So we have experience. Let us share the experience before moving forward. So on the issue which you try to raise about the lack of data, of course, it's not a small issue, it's a big issue. But for us, we manage by, as I pointed out, by taking on board people from different ministries, institutions. Of course, if you just sit at the National Statistical Institutes or at the ministry alone, you cannot see these sources of data. So by calling them, by having a discussion with them, they will give you a full information about the availability of this data. Once I understand that you are saying that you had a discussion or you had like a scanning around, but once you call these people and have a discussion, they will be giving you a more picture on how to go about. So this is how we did. Although in my presentation I pointed out that for the missing data, we had to impute some of the data in order to fill the gap. So this is how we manage. But all in all, you don't depend on one source of the data. Of course, you have to look from different sources in order to bridge the gap. So this is what I want to encourage you also to do the same. Of course, as you understand, if I just give you the data set without sitting together and discussing, because you are not experienced, I mean you are not professional in each angle. For example, you might be professional on the crop sector, but there are other professionals on the livestock, on fisheries. So once you bring them on board, they will be in a position to share with you what the figure means and how to move to go about. But also sometimes we need to use some ratios, okay? And I want to give you one example. For example, if you don't have a clear picture on the import or export with from the country's perspective, you can also use the same kind of information from the respective countries to see, like a mirror, to see exactly how much has been imported, how much has been exported, and so forth. So this is the mechanism, but also you need, as expert, to be under one roof and to go through. But also, if the issue of in my presentation also I talked about the issue of auxiliary data. Okay, that's the one area which you can also look at it and move forward. Of course, I understand that there is this informal sector. Of course, there are these people who are trading between two countries, but unfortunately, this is what we call informal sector. You cannot capture it easily. Okay, but for us, we are lucky that we had one time, we did a survey to monitor through these borders on average how these commodities cross-border. So we had informal cross-border trade, which was conducted by having also our colleague from other countries like Uganda, UBOS. We collaborated and we came up with something like a clear picture, somehow, what is the ratio which is being across. So by the time we are looking through the importation and exportation data, we manage also to consider that kind of ratios, because sometimes it's very difficult to come up with exactly, but this can give you a clear picture what is going around. So this is what I can reply on what you wanted to know from our side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Titus. Actually, supplement on that, under the East African statistics fraternity, there is a program for collecting cross-border trade data. Of course, Uganda is advanced in that, because Uganda collects cross-border data regularly, and the informal trade constitutes 25% of the total export-import value. So, and that information is available by product, by whatever. So the moment you do that as a country, then you can actually extract information from that source. That's what we talk about, integrating the entire National Statistics Office, looking at yourselves as one instead of being disjoint. That can be a source of data from trade statisticians. Can we ask Jocelyn to respond? We have very few minutes. You have like 1 minute or two.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you for the questions. Yes, the data for agricultural cost of production existed for the two agricultural census, but after the last census in 2005, there was no up-to-date of this data. So we are waiting for the new agricultural census, but with technical assistance of provided by the AFTB, we have now the simulation tool in Excel, for which the structural data is always the data about the last census, about the structural data. But for the current data, like the price, we can now make a simulation by providing data about the current data, like price. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It's now 3:30, and our session was supposed to run up to 3:30. So in case there is any very burning question, if there is none, I would like to take this opportunity to thank you. Can we give a round of applause to the presenters and to the audience for being a very good audience, because I think this has been a very fruitful discussion. For any further follow-up, please don't hesitate to follow up the presenters and also to get their contacts in case you want to follow up what they are doing. So thank you so much, and I would like to close this session at this time. Thank you. Yeah, I've been reminded that also clapping for the chair. Or there must be an administrative announcement.
I thank the chair for conducting this session, so nice. And I thank all the speakers for their resourceful speech and presentation. And one announcement for delegates who want to take their certificate, please collect it from registration counter in the ground floor. Thank you.